to the August 21st, 2024 regularly scheduled meeting of the Town of Eastham Planning Board. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. I have to ask, is anybody doing any recording in the audience, either audio or visual? No? Okay, the record will show they're not. Okay. We have a continuation tonight. This is for a property, so I will open the hearing on case number PB 2024-08 for 720 Schoolhouse Road, as shown on map 9. Parcel 68A, continued from June 17th, 2024 Planning Board meeting. Deborah Davis and Herbert Davis, owners. Deborah Davis, applicant, seeks site plan approval residential pursuant to Eastham zoning bylaw, section 7.4, residential lot intensity, and section 10.3, site plan approval residential, to demolish an existing one-story dwelling and build a new two-story dwelling with attached two-car garage and second-floor accessory dwelling unit above the garage with a site coverage of 4,071 square feet, which is 11.9%, on a lot containing 20,000 square feet or more, where the site coverage exceeds 3,000 square feet. Good evening.
Good evening.
So we're continuing this from the last meeting, and we had some issues come up, and I understand you have submitted some new documentation. Do you want to go through that?
Yes. I wanted to, first of all, just say that I want to apologize for last meeting because my presentation wasn't as complete as I realized that it should have been. I should have addressed a lot of the issues I said that were coming up by the citizens or by the board, and I didn't do that. I don't think that I did that well. So that's why I'm apologizing. And if I may, I'd like to just start by going through a few things. My wife and I made a decision about Eastham because we looked at a number of different towns, up from Orleans back up to Provincetown. And when it came down to it, Eastham met a lot of cool criteria, and that was some of the things that I was going to talk about in terms of why we had chosen Eastham. We've purchased the property. It is ours now. And we went through the Eastham guidelines in terms of what their strategic plan was, what the task force had done. Those were all documents that we had looked at. By the way, these are my in-laws that are coming in right now.
Welcome.
Okay. And as I stated before, one of the reasons that my wife and I relocated to the Cape was to help care for my in-law. And there was conversation on some cases that they were saying they weren't so sure about. You know, there's a lot of people who come into town and they say particular things, but it's not written, they don't know that it's true. They're saying things just to do development. But this is a real thing for us. It's a family, you know, decision to come to the Cape and be here so that we have a family that's united together. Now, if we take a look at the screen here, like you had made mention, we're constructing a single-family home with an attached two-car garage with an ADU above. One of the reasons why we looked at having an ADU was twofold. One, they were saying, well, we looked at the history of what's happening and the complaints that are constantly going on about saying, well, there's not enough places for people to stay. There's not enough. I said, well, we're not opposed to sharing our land with someone. So why not construct an ADU and try to create something that's there? Our main house, which is,
I think you have to go down there and click on the slideshow thing, because I think you're just in the,
it wasn't working before.
oh, that white thing.
Yeah. Oh, it is, it's coming on.
This is
coming
like
on.
slideshow by committee.
Okay, good. So this is our residence that we are building here. That's the 2,868 square foot dwelling. It's a two-story, and to the right there is the mudroom, laundry, powder room, that's attached to it. The ADU and garage are now with this. This is how this is expanded. This is a way that this presents in terms of the elevation on the front. As you can see, yes, the main house is larger than most houses, but in terms of trying to also accommodate other things in terms of our garage and having an ADU, we have another structure there that is not the same size as the main house. It is a smaller structure. And this gives you an idea about what it looks like in terms of volume and mass. I realize that this is like one of the things that I did not do last time in terms of giving people an orientation about, well, what is this like? Because not everyone can visualize, well, what is a structure going to look like? Well, you can talk about numbers, you can talk about those things, but how is that really going to look, and what is the relative size of things? And if you're going to have additional living space, you're going to have a larger space unless you're going to have a situation where you're saying, okay, tell you what, why don't you reduce your living space so that you put in an ADU? No matter how we look at this, there has to be, some compromise on everyone's part in terms of trying to meet these goals of saying, what can we do and how can we accommodate what is taking place in terms of Eastham moving into the future? Because renovations and development are going to take place. It's just a natural part of the way things are. But it is important that development is managed. This is stuff that I'm talking about, and I know that you all know, it's coming right from the task force. That stuff is managed in a way, and that's why they had an issue with the idea that through 2016, 17, 18, 19, 21, the coverage and the sizes of the homes were going up each and every year. At the point in 2021, the percentage of coverage of the new construction that had been taken place was 18 to as much as 30% of lots. So they instituted something for May, what they recommended and was adopted in May, to say, listen, what we need to do in order to maintain the character of our place, of Eastham, but still understand that development is going to take place, we must understand that we have to have limits on what is going to take place so that people have objective guidelines in order to understand, well, what can I do and what can I do? Otherwise, it's constant conversation, right, that has to take place, and people are saying, well, I don't know if I think about that. I don't know if I like that. That's a difficult way for new people coming in, especially if you're trying to say, don't have people that are just coming in with hordes of money and saying, I want to do whatever I want. So then it has to be somewhat appealing to people that have limited means, and they cannot necessarily say, well, I got to get engineers for everything. I cannot really do construction on my own home. I have to hire someone. Everything is at top dollar. That means that you are being priced out. You're going to be priced out of things. So with this process that I see happening here, and I will continue to show, this is a satellite image of our lot. In our neighborhood, there are only 2 other lots that are larger in acreage than ours. Ours is .78. All of the rest are roughly around a half an acre or less. That limits their size. They are older homes. And in previous years, previous decades, people were moving in and they were primarily constructing seasonal homes. Ones that they were coming and they were just saying, well, we're just going to be here for a little while and, you know, we don't mind this. Or they were starter homes. In the last 30 or 40 years, people have been buying those homes and they've been renovating them and they've been expanding them a little bit. They've been making them more into year-round homes, but still 60-some% of the homes in Eastham are seasonal, where people aren't here year-round. We are here and we're coming to live here. My wife and I work from home. Anybody that works from home knows that there's more space that you need in order for you to not only work, but you live and you relax. It's the nature of the way life is if you aren't working, if you aren't living outside of your home. Again, I want to reiterate, which is in all of the paperwork, our property and our project adheres to the guidelines that were passed and adopted just in May of 2023. We're not asking for a variance to go above and beyond that. We're trying to adhere to what was the published regulations. And even when we have, working with Paul and Angie, and they said, well, you know, maybe this might be good or that might be good, we've made effort repeatedly to say, okay, we'll make an adjustment. We'll make an adjustment. This is not something, we're people that are we want to be good neighbors. That's who we are. We grew up in Colchester, Connecticut, a town of less than 5,000 people. This is not something that we look at and want to say, well, we want to do whatever we want to do. I actually believe that people should be accountable to each other. People need to listen to each other. And people also need to learn about each other. Otherwise, we can make calls about each other that's based on conjecture rather than really I met with a couple of my neighbors on Saturday because I came to understand that that was part of our issue, is that they don't know who we are. It's, you know, who is this person coming into my neighborhood? And it's a good thing to do that. There's no harm in saying, well, please, you can talk to me. You can ask me questions. You can, you know, I don't mind. Tell me what your concerns are. And that was something that was, we were able, I believe, was able to work out well because the effort was made to say, let's connect and let's talk about things. So when I come back to the strategic plan, it says that we want to have development that's compatible with the prevailing character of other buildings and uses on the site within the neighborhood and town. That's understandable. But that has to be done in the context of new people moving into town, and they're going to be living here year-round. It's not just a seasonal abode for us. It's not just a place that is in a limited way, going to take care of us. Our home is going to accommodate us. Our home needs to be made to blend with how we live. And working at home is a big deal in terms of what kind of space that you need. That's all that I'm saying. And our house is now at 12, it's 11.9. It's under the 12% regulation, which was important based upon the Eastham's task force's recommendations and the adopted guidelines, because it brings us back, brings Eastham back to a time when construction was before 2021, 2020, 2018. That's an important thing. It was an objective determiner because 95% of the lots within Eastham are between 5% and 15% coverage. So they use 12% as a guide to say this will help to maintain the objective of maintaining the character of the town. So we tried and looked at doing things all in keeping when we were doing the project with that understanding and the guidelines that were there. So, excuse me. I've talked about a bit of this, but these were us taking time to look at from Orleans up to Wellfleet here was an important thing. But Eastham, because of its location to year-round businesses, Orleans has a good grocery store that's located in it, and you don't want to have to drive an hour all of the time to go and get supplies and go and get things. And it's located not far from Provincetown, where my in-laws are currently located. Excuse me. The businesses that are here, the seashore, obviously, and we met great people just in our time that we've been here these months since April when we started this. As you may or may not know, I was at the April meeting, I was at the May meeting, right? The June meeting and the July meeting. I attended May and July right now, and this is my third time in August. Okay, I mean, I was in the meeting. So there were important things that came out, and of the, excuse me. Okay. The task force came up with some very interesting things, and I talk about that because the task force's findings were instrumental in coming up with the zoning regulations. So when I look at what the task force was centering in on and what they were doing. They particularly called out the idea of adhering to particular standards, not only just the 12% or less, but it was also all of the height, right? The regulations, the setbacks, what you're going to do. And we also talked about how the house is situated on the lot. So they had examples within their report that talked about what you could expect in terms of what we had and what the limitations that they were recommending would look like. And if I can help to enlarge this just a little. Apologize for this. Maybe, oh, I can do it with my hands. Technology. Okay. So our lot falls into that range where it says 30,000 to 39, middle page on there, which happens to be larger again than the majority of lots in Eastham. So the house to the right is what is saying, if we are looking at the house to the right in the middle screen, in the middle panel, on the lower aspect, the house to the right, that is a house that is actually larger than our house that we are proposing. As you can see, beyond that tree that is on the side there, there's another wing that's on that house over there. Then there's the middle section, and then there's and then there's the garage to the right of that. These are understandings that were coming out because they were trying to balance the idea that we're saying we're trying to keep our rural character along with the idea that development is going to come. The ages of the houses that are here, the condition, and we're trying to attract new and, people into the neighborhood with different kinds of resources.
Year-rounders.
Year-rounders. This slide here shows what the house would look like, or its image of the house on the lot itself. I gave you that overview of the other thing that gives you the idea about proportion and massing from the main house and the garage and that thing, and how the different levels are there and how that changes with things. And what does it look like relative to the others? In the context of a lot that is 50% wooded. It has mature trees with an understory that is on it that is lush. I understand that there are deciduous trees that are here that come down, where the leaves come down. But we weren't really looking at trying to say, well, okay, we're going to, is the intent of the regulation to say, we don't want the house to be seen at all? Or do we want it more to be obscured where it isn't prominent? That's what my understanding was. And so we wanted to keep that significant growth of trees that's in the front there That's one of the reasons why we also wanted to keep the driveway where it was, because relative to the positioning of the house, it kept the house more obscured. But we were paying attention to the idea that this is something, okay, we're going to consider it. We're open to looking and trying to do stuff. But it's like juggling, lots of different factors at the same time. So, we're doing our best to try to obviously do something that works for us, but also obviously works for the town. We do understand this. And these aren't little trees either, by the way. A lot of those trees that are mature there, they're 50, 60 footers and more, okay? So they're not something like our 30-foot house is going to be like looming over top of the trees or something, because it's not the way that it looks at all. Okay, so what do we have right now? This is the site plan that you all have, and it gives you, again, those same kinds of ratios that are there in the positioning of what we were looking for. Our setbacks are right on point. They are more than what is required, substantially more than what is required, okay, by the regulations and the guidelines. You can see the positioning. I don't know how many of you visited the site or not, but as you can see, the old house, or the house that we're looking to take down, is sort of superimposed in there. And it gives you a relative idea about what it would be like when you were coming in and you're coming down the driveway. You're only going to see just a small part of the house, okay? So most of it is actually still back into the lot. These are just some photos of the existing house that's there, and it's in bad shape, okay? I just, to say that there are, this is not a house that's going to be preserved, okay? Okay. With regard to regulations, the health department did a review of ours, and we meet the criteria for it being 3 bedrooms, which is 2 in the main house, 2 bedrooms in the main house, and the 1 in the ADU. And we have a re-engineered septic plan. Really, the only thing that needed to change on the septic plan was that it needed to be a 2-compartment tank that it had to empty into, because that's by Title V regulations. But now we have that, and all we have to do is go through the process of getting, that approved, and then we'll be able to move forward. And this is just the septic, the engineered septic plan that we will be taking there. I would have had this done earlier, but the engineer
Went on vacation.
went to Scotland, and I needed to have an official colored, stamped copy for the process, and I couldn't get it at the time, so.
But they did email a copy to the board, so
Yeah.
you just don't have a paper copy yet. And
Right.
they'll be back tomorrow, of course.
So this is more of the plan, as we were talking about, and what the layout is, okay? This is the first floor, and as you can see, there's the master bedroom is on the left-hand side. There's the living room, entertainment area, and then the kitchen, and then the mudroom, and laundry area, and then the garage. As far as, okay, second floor has the master bedroom on the left again, and then there is an open area. We used to have an office in the previous one, I'm sure that you've all received that, that was over there, but that, because of its privacy, it could be construed as a bedroom. So we decided to say, okay, we'll just leave the area open, but that's going to be our multi-purpose area where our work is, we'll be doing our work. And, you know, whatever we need to do, we'll do it there. The other area is open to down below. I've always just liked the feeling of having a high ceiling in an area. It creates a different feel for me when I come in to a place like there. I feel free. And then you have the ADU on the other side there. It is not a property or a house that is like filled with a whole lot of opulent things or, you know, extravagance of any sort. It's about having space and a feel. And again, I say, we're within the guidelines of what the regulations, the latest regulations to help and promote
Bringing year-rounders in.
bringing year-rounders in, but it's in keeping with what the strategic plan was and the task force was trying to do. And yes, this is, I guess, one of the earlier examples, I suppose, of something that's saying what is going to be part of our model of saying, what's this kind of potential balance that is there, and are our regulations doing what we wanted to, or do we need to, I don't know. I mean, you're going to cut them back to 10%. I don't know, or say that, you know, we want to have something else. But at this particular point, we're adhering to the regulations. And I'm trying to put myself also in your shoes and saying, well, what is the meaning of this, right? And how it is. That's what you're hearing as far as questions are concerned. This is a picture of elevations. And I wanted to show this because there's sconce lighting that is on outside each of the doors. And then along the walk where you can see that there's two lights on the garage to the right there. That's outside. Those are all downcasting lights. And they do not, contribute to like light pollution that's going to be casting up and into the trees or over at the neighbors and all of the rest. It's not going to be that way. It is very understated. It is to light the ground. On the back side of the house, it is similar. Outside the doors of the ADU and the garage, there's light there that's casting down to illuminate the walkway to make it safe. And it's the same way on the back of the house. These are renderings that I already gave you an idea about it, but it is important to look at the relative position and construction of what we are looking to do. And we really did put thought into trying to meet the spirit of the regulations of what was trying to do, and the way that this house would be situated in the neighborhood and how it would impact people driving on Schoolhouse Road or people that are our neighbors. This does give you a pretty good idea of what it would look like from the street. These positions are there. Coming back, another example. Another thing that we are doing, just to make measure, that's why you see the solar panels on the back. We are not going to be using any petroleum in here. This is all electric, and we're hoping to, that we'll have sufficient, solar generation that, a large percentage of our electrical needs will be used for that, along with the use of radiant heat, that is actually quite efficient, and the way that the house is going to be constructed in general in terms of its thermal envelope, it's not going to have high energy utilization. Here's a picture again of that front elevation. The rear elevations are here with the decks on the back. The part that you see coming out there, that's the kitchen, and the first level there, that is the kitchen. And again, another angle of it that shows you that it isn't just one block of house. And that will just give you an idea about what I was talking about in terms of the lighting at night. Okay, now some of the concerns that came up at the meeting was about landscaping. And I'm going to give my neighbor to the rear at 710. This is a picture of what the property looks like. And there's his fence is there, and then the house beyond. And I spoke with them, and we came up with the plan of planting 3 trees right in that area. That is, that's a little gap right there, and they said they would be fine with that. So that's what the plan was, and that's what you're seeing on the plan that is there. That's just a further back picture to give you an idea about what it looks like. And by the way, I am taking this photo from on top of the roof, and so it's at a level that it's like you would be sitting on the second floor. You would be sitting on the second floor of the proposed house. That's what this level would be like. It's not, like you can see, it's not like I'm up above the treetops or something. Okay. This is our proposed landscape plan. And again, I want to emphasize that this lot has mature trees and understory on it. And it is 50% covered by mature trees and understory. What is cleared mostly right there right now is cleared right now. It's not something that's additional, a lot of additional clearing that we're doing, because we're not. We're only clearing, the main clearing that we're doing is what's growing up out of the house. Okay. So, to our neighbor at 690, and I gave you a relative, and these positions are actually pretty accurate. The planting additional evergreens there, like 3 white pines along that area, in addition to the highberry,
Blueberry
the bayberry and the high bush blueberries, which are all those things that are listed coming in around there, around the property. They create a nice additional buffer to what is there, additional. One of the things that we weren't looking to do was to also overcrowd existing trees and vegetation by you're planting things too close to it. You can't plant trees too close to each other, and they're competing too heavily. That's what my understanding is, and actually my wife is a much better,
You have to account for the dimensions of the canopy when you're planting.
so we were resistant to the idea of planting another 30 or 40 trees on
On the lot.
a property that looks like this. This is looking at our neighbor to 750. I didn't mind putting on the plan that we would put another few trees over here. Our neighbor at 750 said, you don't have to plant anything as far as we're concerned. But in order to try to say, okay, I'm trying to understand what the spirit of the regulation and what it is that, people are seeking, because that's not even my neighbor talking, that's just comments that are coming. I said, okay, so we'll plant a few, but I don't see us planting, plant another 15 trees along there. I'm starting to, I lose an understanding about it when it comes to about what the objective is. In this area here, excuse me, this is 750, going towards 750 as well, right? And the front yard is more to the left, so I give you an orientation, right, of that,
The left side of that is the road.
right? So when we're looking at what we are going to do, I think that part of the staff report was plant 15 evergreens along here. Not only does that impact our utilization of the property, but now we're having to say, well, okay, where are we actually planting that? In the understory there's so many pines and things that are growing in there, and bushes, it's incredible. And there is blocking. This is 710's property again. This was the entrance to our property before I did any trimming, right, to improve the sight lines.
When you going to babies,
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
So the other, another thing was about sight lines that we talked about. And I wanted to pay attention to that because everybody wants to be safe. There's no question about that. You want to be safe. So I actually tried to look at getting a civil engineer. Forget it. First of all, they don't even want to come to do something little like this. And the other thing is that they were saying if we did come out, it would be like $8,000 or something. Okay? I just didn't think that this was something that I could afford to do. So I took a look at things, and on the landscape plan there, what I did was I put the markings that shows you where the lines of visualization is, right? So this is looking north from and it's towards 750 and 725, okay? And one of the civil engineers said, I can tell you, he says that the common frame that we do is that it's the speed limit times 5.5 seconds. That's what you look at to determine a sightline distance that's reasonable. So speed limit on this road is 30 miles an hour. So 5.5 seconds puts you at 165 feet. On this side over here, I can see 42 inches above the ground comfortably. I put a stake over there. That's outside the north entry, the entrance. There's a U-shaped driveway at 750. Their furthest one, which is 220-some feet, I could see comfortably going up there. There was no problem with this, seeing that, and that puts us more at a range, it's well beyond the 165 that's needed. And so there really wasn't any problem for my needs. When you look down, this is a cool thing. This is south, but now I'm looking towards the property. That's my red truck in the driveway, if you can see it in the distance there, and I can blow it up just a little bit so that you can see it better. Okay? This is at the pole of the person who owns 670. It's on the borderline of the property from 690 and 670. It's right on their property line. There's a pole that is there. It's 180 feet away from that driveway there. If that bush that is on 690's property was trimmed just a little bit, I could see all the way down there comfortably, even before I bring my truck out to where it is on the street. So I either have to bring it out beyond those poles a little bit and start looking down there, or if that bush was trimmed, I could see all the way down. They've agreed to, one of my neighbors has said that they were allowed to, they're going to trim it at some particular point when they get around to it, right? But they have agreed, they said it would improve their sight lines too, okay? That's what the looking south looks like from our driveway, looking around, and you can see to that pole and just beyond that pole at 180 feet. I could see 200 and more if there was clearing that was done just a little bit on both of the properties at the property line. I could see almost 230 feet. This is looking at the three driveways that are sort of right next to each other
From Meeting House Road.
from Meeting House Road. And this is what it looks like down Meeting House Road. And there's a clear shot for me to see anything that's coming up and down that road, which is very comforting to me. Now, there's a number of things that I think is important to go over because the staff report sort of reflects what I was talking about in a lot of respects, that this is what we were trying to do, is adhere to things, that we are not negatively impacting the neighborhood and we are adhering to regulations. There are recommendations that are being made there, but I was hoping that my presentation could help you see that we've been thoughtful about the idea about what is going on the property and what our intentions are and how it meets the spirit and letter of the regulations and what was being asked and what people are looking, what's written here. I know that it may not address some emotional kinds of feelings or things, but it's hard for somebody to say, I'm trying to build a home and a house, and I have to base that on something concrete. It's hard for me to base it on something that I can't wrap my, self around objectively. So I'm hoping that you look at this report, and I will be happy to go over it because it's a cool report, okay, from my standpoint of view. By the way, the staff has been great for me. It's been great, for us.
Okay, thank you. Your presentation was appreciated. You have clarified a bunch of issues for us, and I think that's great. You've also listened to us, which I like. I like when an applicant listens and responds to what we're talking about. Okay, board members, you recall that this has been going on for several months. The applicant came back, I think he's right, in April with an informal, at which point we said we liked the concept. I agree with you. If you're going to have an ADU unit, your building is going to be bigger. I mean, there's just no way around it. And your point's well taken that you have a 2,800 square foot house. And the reason it's more is because of a garage and an ADU. So that makes sense to me. I do notice in the report from Angie that there was suggestion in the last item, which was 17, that there be a mix of white pine, American holly, and eastern red cedar. Do you have an objection where you have noted on the plan that there will be 3 white pines to make it 1 white pine, 1 American holly, and 1 eastern red cedar?
I thought that those were just suggestions, not that we.
It is. It is just a suggestion, but it came, Angie had discussions with the Conservation Board, which you're not, you don't need to go to. You're all set, you're out of that. But it was just a suggestion that a mixture would be better than a single species. Now, I don't know if that's a problem for you or not, and I don't know if it's an issue.
Let me just say that I prefer not to have holly, because I just don't want anything with prickers on the property.
Okay.
So that's one thing, plus holly really spreads fast because the birds like the berries. So.
Okay.
But I don't mind doing a mixture, and I don't mind it being something that is indigenous to the area. I don't want to.
So if we took out American holly and just left in white pine and eastern red cedar, would that be
Or
okay?
just put in, or something similar, like,
Well, what do you,
I think
yeah,
we have a tree that's right next to the house. We're going to first try to move that one
okay.
over there. I don't know what that species is, but it's an evergreen.
Yeah, it's a
so.
pine.
It's
The staff report specified a number of trees.
Correct.
Because we were trying to look at it just, if you were going to cover this whole large area, it would require quite an amount of trees. And varying, in that context, where you're going to have a large amount of trees, varying the species would be optimal, just because for visual interest, but also single species, you get one blight or something and it wipes out. So that was really the starting point. So just depending on what the final number of trees, I mean, just for sake of argument, if you end up going with, you're proposing 9 white pines, if you end up going with that number, I personally
Don't see the need to vary it.
don't, yeah, I mean, I think it's really just because if you're talking about
Okay,
dozens of trees, you know.
that makes sense.
because we have tons of oaks all over the place already.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's,
Well, oaks and maples. The other thing is that we were, a neighbor of ours, who's really cool, made the reference that she said, if you put them in groups of 3, they protect each other. Well,
Okay.
that's what she's saying, and so that's where I was actually coming from. It was like, it was right on point, and she's really knowledgeable about stuff.
Okay,
So I just wanted to ask, and I haven't talked to you about this, but one of the things that was in one of these papers was that we couldn't get the certificate of occupancy until we planted the trees. And I'm really uncomfortable with that because we're on a budget. So it would be really lovely to say, we're going to have tons of money for landscaping by the time this place is built. But it may have to be another year before we have the funds for doing all that stuff. Because we are not wealthy people. I'm a teacher, he was a nurse, a construction worker. I mean, we're really here by the fact that my mom passed away a year ago this month, and we're using that money to do this. So there isn't, we use the money to get the
Okay.
property. There's not a lot of money here for us to just say, oh, we're gonna do flower beds. I'm thinking, I'm gonna go collect seeds along the side of the road for different flowers and save those for next year. We're on a budget.
Paul?
would you be able to commit to doing the pine trees, the screening?
Oh,
Within that
definitely to the
timeframe?
screening. Yeah. We're definitely going to do that. We just,
Well, that's something for the board to consider, if
Right.
you're comfortable having, at minimum,
Yeah.
the screening
I mean,
trees installed.
candidly, we're not, well, I'm personally, I'm not terribly concerned about your row of bayberry along the front to the woods. I don't think we need screening there.
yeah.
So if you wanted to do that, that's your option later. I don't see that being part of site plan approval, candidly. I do see the 3 sections of the 3 pines being part of it. So I do think the board needs to discuss whether or not what you see in front of you, which is the plan submitted by the applicant for 3 sections of 3 pines is sufficient to meet our need. I don't think we're obligated to require the applicant to completely screen this thing so nothing's visible from any direction. That's not part of site plan approval, in my opinion. So if we want to discuss the issue, originally number 17 in the memo of conditions required a lot more trees. Are you, and I'm going to ask you directly, are you comfortable with the 3 sets of 3 white pines proposed by the applicant in lieu of all the other trees that were in number 17? Any ideas?
Who are you asking?
Well, we'll start
Who are you?
with Brian.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that would look. So, I mean, it'd be kind of hard to visualize. He did put up a photo earlier which showed a bunch of trees. And as the applicant's wife said, you don't want to put trees with trees too close together. So I guess I'm not really sure.
Okay. Michelle?
Well, I have another comment first, if that's okay.
That's fine.
So, thank you for all of that, and, you know, and I'm interested also, many of your neighbors are here too, so I'm very interested to hear from them. This is a very different property from what exists, right? So, and assuming, let's pretend that the current property was inhabited by year-rounders, okay? You're building a multi-use property, right? Where you've got, you know, extended family living there and a tenant, right? Which means there's going to be more traffic, there's going to be, you know, deliveries, there's going to be lighting at different times of the day, there's just going to be more activity, right? And so I do think that the screening issue is critical and important, and it needs to be concurrent with occupying the structure, right? So I truly believe that the minimal screening, it needs to happen concurrently with occupying the home, is how I see it. Now, whatever that means in terms of how many, the 3, 3, and 3, Mr. Chairman, I would absolutely support doing that before it's occupied, which would be before there's a C of O. The rest of it, if it's not screening vegetation, I think could come over time as budget would allow. That's my view.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
I'm pretty much the same as Michelle, to be honest with you. I mean, all the stuff you have around the house, that can wait.
Yep.
But screening from your neighbors, that I think is very important. And I don't think, I mean, I'm not even sure when you say white pines, are we talking a foot tall, or are we
Right. And how
talking
long do they
25
take?
feet tall? I don't know.
No, they're
described.
starting up, they're like 10, the stipulation was 10 gallon, 10 gallon things.
But I
that are
don't
in
think
there.
you'll find that they're all that expensive, to be honest.
It's $150 for the tree, and then you have to get somebody to plant it and carry it over there.
You guys can
all that.
plant them.
Yeah, I can.
I'm just saying that I think that that portion is critical.
I wanted to tell you that in the original thing, by the way, I didn't even have any of that. When I was told that I needed to have a light landscape plan made, so that's why we were putting it in, but we can't afford to do all that planting right away anyway. It's so true, but they said you needed to have a plan. I wanted to live there a little while and say, oh,
This
I
would
think
be
this could
nice
be cool to
looking.
do this, it would be cool to do that. But the trees are not a problem. I don't know, you know.
Kevin?
I mimic the same thoughts. I also want to hear from the neighbors,
Yeah.
project in general, but as far as the screening question here, I'm on board with that.
Okay. And the reason I ask that is because in the conditions of approval, we talk about landscaping, and I want to modify it if necessary, to match what you're proposing. Okay, let's open it up to the neighbors. Please come forward, state your name, and speak to the microphone there, and tell us what your concerns are.
Scott Brookshire, 720 Schoolhouse Road. We talked earlier, and they proposed the 3, 3, and 3. We were happy with that.
Okay.
You know, and if it shows up, you know, before, you know, if it's in there contingent, occupancy contingent, that's fine with me. We weren't concerned with everything.
Right.
Yeah, we were just, when they proposed the 3, and the 3 along the driveway, and the 3 along, I think, Jackie and Emily's property, you know, we were delighted. You know,
Okay.
so,
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else in the audience? I can't tell, is there anybody on, oh, I'm sorry, please come up.
Hi, I'm Bill Decker, trustee, 625 Schoolhouse Road. And I would like to say that I really appreciated the presentation and can't help but really like my new neighbors, okay? And I think that I actually appreciated the minimalist approach to landscaping. If I have to really think about my fears for what was being proposed, it's that my own abutter used hybrid arborvitaes, which are impinging on mine. What was described as a shield is to me a horrible non-native eyesore. I cry every time I look out my window. It's heartbreaking. My backyard is falling into the property. I see the due diligence that has been applied to this site plan, and I really applaud it. It didn't happen before. So what's really at heart my concern is that I have seen inconsistencies in the town of Eastham in the zoning. I've seen sort of intentional skirting of site plan reviews so that we never had an opportunity to voice concerns about things like the use of boulders to fill in kettle ponds, things like really what I consider egregious, you know, things that have gone on in the town, and I have really suffered from it. There's a couple of vacant lots, one directly next door to mine and one across the street. My concern is precedent. I think this proposal is actually reasonable. And in my letter, which was really based a lot on fear on prior actions of the town board, I requested to even reduce the size. I will withdraw that. I'm perfectly happy with what happened, or with this proposal, and with the neighbors and their intent. And even I can show them where to get some white pines. I tried to plant white pines when my abutter was parking by bulldozers in his backyard. He's still doing it. It's been going on for 4 years. I've just had no luck trying to get any change. It's just one pushback after another, constant regrading, and my lots falling into theirs. It's really a hardship situation, which I'm going to address with the zoning enforcement board. In fact, I have learned today from the city of Orleans that it is a crime to upend monuments and not replace them. So I'm requesting that occur first. So at any rate, think that this was a really great proceeding. I have no further issues with the proposal, and only request that in the future, the board really consider the character of the Cape, look closely at requirements for sewage, especially if we start using these ADUs. I know that the property behind me has not perked before, but it sort of looks like there's going to be an ADU sort of in process right now. Same thing with before. I used to work with the Park Service. I know that some lots are permeable and some lots are not. And the really permeable one, they go right into the really fragile ecosystem. So I'm going to just beg the board to use the same level of due diligence I'm seeing here, and I will withdraw any requirements for or requests even for modification of this plan. And really kind of look forward to new neighbors. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As a point of clarification, not every house that gets built in Eastham comes to this board. If it's less than 3,000 square feet, it doesn't. So-
There's ways to circumvent the site plan review. And
So,
that's what I'm concerned about.
So when we have an application, we treat all applications the same way we're treating this one. But a lot of houses get built without our approval, and there's nothing really we can do about that. Because if they don't come here, They don't need our approval.
So I hope in the future, when they start adding on, the permit process will include your review. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Can we get, is there anybody online?
I don't think so.
Okay. Board members, are we ready to proceed to findings of facts? I don't hear an objection, then I will proceed to that. Okay.
Supplement, just as a note, number 5 on the findings of fact also speaks to the historic review, which we struck through on the conditions. It also needs to be
So do we need to leave it in, or
remove it.
remove
Yeah,
number
there
5?
too.
Okay, so this will be number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Here we go. For case number PB 2024-08, we have the following proposed findings of fact. Number 1, property is located at 720 Schoolhouse Road, as shown on map 9, parcel 68A, and is located in District A residential. Number 2, applicant seat site, do we have, we've talked about waiving these and just going standard. Is there any reason not to on this one? We took out number 5.
I think we can go to number 6.
You
unless
have, you have a copy of the report. Oh,
Well, I'm
yeah,
just doing findings of
Sure, you-
facts.
If we,
I'm sorry.
it's up to you. You can read them, or you can, they're all standard, and.
You've read
as of-
them.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're okay to say it would be through number 11, because we're going to eliminate number 5? Is that, or do you want me to read them? I can read them if you want.
Well, I guess it's just important to make sure if anyone on the board has any issues or wants to amend
Okay.
or add to them, now's the time to do it,
So
so.
do you want to take a moment to read them? We're going to eliminate number 5, so number 6 becomes number 5, likewise all the way up to number 11.
And what now is 11? We did receive 1 letter as of today, so I'll note that.
Only, I got 2 letters. I have Decker and Davis. What,
From last, we got one
Oh,
last
from
time.
last time, so we have 3 then.
total of 3. Okay, and I can say that.
And then I think on number 6, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
the installation of approved landscape plan prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, it says occupancy, but it should be occupancy. I think we want to be specific about the 3, 3, and 3.
Well, that, I was planning to do that in the conditions, because that's where they
Oh,
usually
okay.
read the specifics.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay?
Well,
So,
sorry,
Yeah.
no, well, they should match. So the findings will match the condition. So you could do, condition of approval will require limit of clearing for existing vegetation to be staked, installation of
Approved
the 9
screening.
white
9
9 white
white
pines.
pines.
and
shall
3
occur.
clumps as shown on the plan.
Yeah,
Do
so
I do
just-
that in findings of fact, you're saying?
Both. Because then
Okay.
your findings
Okay,
are going to support why you're putting the condition in.
all right, so what number is that in now?
Go on
6.
number 6.
Number 6,
Old
Now
number
number
6?
5.
Number 6.
old number 6.
Okay, which is now
And
number
then,
5.
like, the second to last, or sentence.
Let's see.
Installation.
So you want to specifically say here, 3 groups of 3 pines.
Or the 9, yeah,
As shown on the site map.
right.
Could you, instead of saying white pines, say pines? And then that way we have a little flexibility about what kind we get? Because the one that is next
Sure.
to the house is not a white pine.
As long as it's not deciduous.
Oh, it's a,
Right.
looks like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
How about we call it native pine?
Native pine. Native pine.
Yes, yes.
Okay?
Not
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the findings of facts for case number PB 2024-08, subject to the conditions, subject to removal of item number 5, renumbering the following items to a total of item 11, and indicating the inclusion of the requirement of 3 groups of 3 pines to be installed prior to the certificate of occupancy as shown on the landscape plan.
And number 11, where it's
Yes,
actually
and on number 11, we received 3 letters against, because they were all against originally, 3 letters against the proposed project. That's it.
I make a motion.
Okay?
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor? Brian?
Aye.
Michelle?
aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay, now we're going to go on to approval. Okay, is there a motion to approve residential site plan approval for case number PB 2024-08, subject to the following conditions? These are standard, are they not, Paul, or?
If you just go to the addition, or proposed additional.
Yeah, subject to the standard conditions, except the removal of number 8 and the renumbering of 9, 10, 11, 12 to 8, 9, 10, 11. And the following additional conditions, number 12. In addition to conditions 16 and 17 above, existing vegetation outside the limit of clearing as shown on the landscape plan dated July 31st, 2024 shall be maintained. Any future of clearing of land outside the limit of clearing that is not exempt under zoning bylaw section 6.11.1 shall require planning board review and approval. The limit of clearing shall be staked at the time of the issuance of a building permit through receipt of the certificate of occupancy. Number 13, prior to the issuance of a building permit, a certificate in the form of a notarized affidavit to verify that either the principal dwelling or the accessory dwelling unit will be rented and/or leased for a period of not less than 12 consecutive months shall be filed with the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds and a copy provided to the building commissioner. Number 14, the owner shall file a certificate of registration for the accessory dwelling unit, ADU, with the Eastham Health Department prior to the start of occupancy of the ADU. The owner shall therefore renew the rental registration and provide an updated notarized affidavit annually with the Eastham Health Department. Number 15, a determination that the owner failed to comply with the provisions of zoning section bylaw 5.2 accessory dwelling unit shall be evidence that the rights and benefits conferred under the building permit, site plan approval, or rental registration were abandoned or otherwise surrendered and discontinued by the owner, and all such rights and benefits shall lapse, and the property within, and the elements that make the accessory dwelling unit a separate dwelling unit shall be removed from the property within 90 days of said final determination. With the owner will comply with all requirements of Massachusetts State Building Code, the Eastham Board of Health Regulations, the State Environmental Code 310 CMR 15, and the Massachusetts Housing Code 105 CMR 410, must be lawful under all provisions of applicable state and local regulations, laws and regulations, and removing all the elements determined to be unpermitted. In addition, failure of the owner to comply with the provisions of the ADU law shall be punishable by a fine as established under section 20.4 of the Eastham zoning bylaw. Number 16, installation of a planning board approved landscape plan will be required prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. The landscape plan will integrate 3 sections of 3 each white pine trees, 10-gallon size.
Change that to pines. Or
I'm sorry?
we're going to change that to pines.
Oh,
instead of
okay, so let's, the landscape plan will require the integrate screening with a mix of at least 3 sections of 3 each pine trees,
Native pine.
native,
Oh, yeah.
10 gallons.
10
Mr. Chair,
gallons, yeah,
Sorry, I might be able to simplify that.
yeah, go ahead.
You could read installation of 9 native pine trees of at least 10-gallon size to be planted in accordance with the approved landscape plan prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy.
Period. Done. The rest of it we don't
That's-
need.
Right.
The primary
Okay.
piece.
Okay, and the only other item that I will put up for quick discussion, I had one that the applicant will arrange for establishing a 165-foot line of direction in both north and south with the intersection of Schoolhouse Road. Is that reasonable? Okay. So I will put number 17 in. The applicant will arrange for establishing 165 linear foot line of sight to the north and south directions at the driveway intersection with Schoolhouse Road. Is there a motion to approve the conditions for case number PB 2024-08 as read?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Brian?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. You're done.
Thank you so much. Oh, what a relief.
Good. Enjoy your new home. You just have to build it now. That's all.
Yeah.
So
Well, now
true.
that the current occupants seem to have moved out, the mosquitoes, it'll be a little easier.
Excellent.
Maybe there's a sale on trees now.
All right, Paul, you're up. Or Angie, who's up?
Ooh, let me do it. I've never given this presentation.
I didn't bring my copies.
I know it by heart.
I just gotta share screen.
Okay, I won't mention it again. All right, thank you, appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AJ.
We have minutes. Before then, we might as well do the minutes. Everybody should have in their packet
Yep.
the minutes of July
already handed them.
17th, 2024 meeting.
Everybody says, well,
If you do, have you read it, and do you have any changes or comments or corrections?
None here.
Just my name isn't spelled right somewhere in there, but it doesn't matter.
Hold on.
It'll stop happening
Yeah,
soon.
it
I'm
happened
so
to me
sorry.
last time.
All right.
I'm really
So is there a
sorry.
motion to approve the minutes of July 17th, 2024, subject to the correction of the spelling of Mr. Earle's name?
So moved.
Okay?
Who moved? I'm sorry.
Kevin.
Kevin moved it. Dave
Dave.
seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, that's done. Now you're up.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Just want to give a brief presentation on the strategic plan. The town's 5-year strategic plan is in the process of being updated, and I've been visiting with various other regulatory boards and as many other advisory boards as I can. Basically, if you don't know, we do have a 5-year strategic plan that's been in place. It has been fairly successful in laying out the town's short-range plan to and objectives to meet our long-range goals. It's been pretty successfully integrated into the town's working mechanisms and our budgetary process, and so it's been a success, and so now the time's come to update the next 5 years. And just briefly, to let you know who's working on this. We do have a strategic planning committee comprised of representatives from various boards, Karen Strauss, and the good thing is a lot of these folks are on multiple boards, so we have pretty good coverage. Folks on conservation and open space.
Excuse
Michelle,
me, could you move to the hallway? That would be appreciated, thank you.
I thought you guys were done, I'm sorry.
Michelle is the planning board representative. She's also on the open space committee. And Carolyn McPherson just has joined. She's on the Housing Trust and also a member of the CPA and the Zoning Task Force. Roy Maroli is on the FinCom and also the Climate Action Committee. So it's a good, it's a small group, but there's a lot of overlap and good coverage amongst the regulatory and advisory boards. I am, Angie and I actually are staff liaisons, and town manager is also working closely with the committee on this. And obviously, updating and implementing, excuse me, the plan involves staff from pretty much every department, and obviously it impacts and involves numerous volunteers on these committees. So the approach to updating this plan, as I mentioned, we do have pretty good existing plan that has been effective. We want to use that as a solid foundation. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. So we're using that as a foundation. We're trying to use as many of the sub-plans as we can and integrate those into the strategic plan. So as you know, we have a lot of plans in town. We have a housing production plan, a wastewater plan, an open space plan, a harbor management plan. We're trying to go into those plans, and all of those individual plans have recommendations and action items of their own. We're trying to go into those plans, pull out what are the remaining items that are the highest priority, and basically move them into the strategic plan. So when you see the final strategic plan, you're really seeing how all of these things nest together, and you're really seeing the highest of the high priorities from all of these other plans. We're also trying to leverage regional model bylaws and best practices. So the Cape Cod Commission, our regional planning agency, has been doing a lot of work with model bylaws for housing and environmental items. So we're trying to look to those and where appropriate, integrate those as action items, again, to address environmental issues, housing issues, so forth. We want to make sure that this plan is a management tool that the town manager and senior staff and the select board can use to help prioritize workloads and focus their effort. As you know, the breadth of what we have to account for under the overall umbrella of the town is pretty wide, and oftentimes it stretches capacity and funding. So we want this document to be a tool to help us, get things in order and prioritize where we can make the best use of limited resources. And as I said, this obviously coordinating and consolidating with the priorities of the select board. They go through an annual goal setting, and we want to integrate that as best we can with their process. Or hopefully their process will integrate with the strategic plan. So the current plan, as I said, it's been effective, but there is room for improvement, and we're trying to keep the framework of what we have, but simplify and streamline as much as we can. The guiding principles, which I have on the next slide, are pretty broad and all-encompassing. The Strategic Planning Committee didn't really see a need to do anything with those, to keep those intact. We are trying to go from 6 goals to 4 broader goals, and then the current plan has 8 strategies, which are objectives, 30 sub-strategies, and over 100 very detailed action items. And that's one of the shortcomings of the current plan, is we found it's just too much detail, it's too in the weeds, and we think it's unnecessary. So we're trying to simplify that with the number of objectives and make sure that the action items are, higher level. We don't need to itemize every last action that needs to be carried out to get these objectives done. So, as I mentioned, the 3 overarching principles are pretty broad, and those will stay intact. It's obviously focusing on preserving our small town identity, our local culture, the natural environment, which is a huge aspect for our living in Eastham, and making sure that, this community is viable for people of all ages to be able to live here and enjoy the community. And this is just also showing below just how we're just consolidating the goals from 6 to 4, making them a little bit broader so that the action items can fit better under each goal. The main thing that staff and the committee are working on now is we have a draft of the plan. We've gone through, we've did an audit from the old plan, what action items, what's been accomplished, what was looked at and determined to be not feasible, what's left, and what do we know we're obligated to do already or in the future, and integrate that. So we have a draft of all of that, but now we want to go through and make sure that the objectives and the actions fit into this SMART model, which is really the best practice. So we want to have, action items and objectives that are specific, measurable, attainable, result-oriented, and time-bound. And this is something that we have struggled with the current plan, just being able to put a metric, a measurable aspect to the action items. It didn't really fit well with the way a lot of the things were put into the current plan, although we have made a lot of progress in it. It was just difficult to efficiently report on a lot of the things that we've been happening. So this is really where we are now, is trying to go through and just rework the language where we can, or is there a metric we can put on it, whether it's increased by a certain percent or add to, or whatever the language is, just to get it into this SMART best practice. So a lot of that goes with figuring out what the metric is, what is the number, if there is one, that we're trying to achieve or get to, assigning responsible entities for each action item, which we did in the current plan, but what we found is in the current plan, the items that were assigned to a specific staff member, a lot more got accomplished than on those items than opposed to some of them that got assigned to a committee or so forth, because you can understand it's just harder. The nature of this work's hard for a committee to carry out. So we are trying to work towards having somebody on a staff be assigned to this, at least to monitor progress and keep things rolling. If not, do the actual work. And obviously timelines, having those incorporated. Again, we're not in control. A lot of the action items are not totally in the control of the town. We're reliant on outside forces, state, federal rules and regulations and funding and so forth. So, but we want to have some measurable time frame in there. And last but not least, identifying important items. So, as we work through this, we want to make sure we're not missing important items, or also make sure that things are in the right place. And a big part of that is we're trying to cross-reference wherever we can with the different action items and see overlap. And that's a way that we'll be able to help prioritize within the plan what we should do first, or what should get most attention. So if we go through the plan and we see, oh, well, we could do a stormwater mitigation project at one of our town landings, which there's an environmental benefit, there's a public access, we can fix up the town landing, things like that. That's a project that might hit, multiple objectives that range across environmental and access, as opposed to something that checks less boxes. Everything has merit in the plan, but again, when it comes down to what are we going to spend money on, what are we going to tackle first, which choices are we going to make, that's one of the things we're trying to build into the plan. So I'm going to just keep it a little bit high level tonight. Just going to go through, these are the slides, and these are actually not reflecting the very latest language, but these are the goals and the objectives that under each. And so goal 1 really deals with environmental issues and making sure we have a resilient community. The objectives focus on wastewater. Wastewater is a running theme throughout the whole plan because it touches so many aspects. We cannot do, we're responsible for environmental restoration, for nitrogen loading in our embayments and waterways, but we can't do the housing we need unless we have wastewater and so forth. So that's where, as we get into the action items, a lot of this stuff cross-references each other, which is good. That's what we want. So the objectives in this area really gear on the environmental. Stormwater is going to be a huge piece of that puzzle. Again, trying to nest in the various sub-plans. We have a hazard mitigation plan, which has a lot of action items, which again touch on public safety and public access, public safety, but also a lot of things that deal with low-lying roads, hazard mitigation through stormwater mitigation, flooding, so forth. And then another new aspect and an important aspect is integrating climate adaptation. That's not really anywhere in the current plan, and obviously 5 years down the road from the current plan, things, we're in a different space and we need to be attuned to that. And also in that time frame, the town has created a very active climate adaptation committee, and they've been working closely with us. So that's actually a new focus area in this plan, is just integrating climate adaptation items.
What does the GHG stand for?
Greenhouse gas.
Greenhouse gas levels, yep.
I think the world has too many initials and acronyms to keep
I know.
track of anymore.
I know,
You need a little
and the
guidebook, you know?
And the plan will have a glossary.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Yeah, it all just adds up to bad Scrabble. None of it makes any sense, but. Goal 2 is fairly broad, but this is where we really are looking at the items related to infrastructure, housing, and general community items. So there's going to be action items that deal directly with implementing the North Eastham master plan, the Route 6 corridor, the zoning, the rezoning that we're working on, and then infrastructure, finishing up the public water system. Housing, wastewater, and housing are, in the, probably the two biggest items in the plan if you go through, individual action items related to them. So that's where action items will be under these objectives. And as I mentioned, the zoning. So North Eastham, it's a big block of items that are all integrated. So figuring out what we're going to do with tea time in Town Center Plaza, creating a walkable, inviting village center is wrapped into the wastewater piece. It's also wrapped into making improvements to Route 6, the highway itself. So there's a lot of work to be done in this area. The third goal is dealing with quality of life, making sure, as I mentioned earlier, that Eastham is a community that can adapt and accommodate folks of all ages and all backgrounds. So the items in here, in this section, really deal with creating new and expanding current community programs, public health services, recreation opportunities, and implementing our ADA plan. So this is another new focus area that really wasn't included in the current plan. So in the last 5 years, the town did do a self-audit for ADA compliance. And so again, another one of these sub-plans that we've created as an ADA, auditing our facilities and our town procedures and policies for ADA compliance. So we want to integrate the highest priority items from that report into this plan. And this is also the area where a lot of the transportation, traffic safety improvement action items will come into effect. The last goal is also new. We don't have anything like this really in the current plan, but it's excellence in town services. So as I mentioned, the current plan where we assigned staff members on a lot of action items and a lot of things got done, which was good, but we have to recognize that in order to really effectively implement this strategic plan, we need to make sure we have the staffing levels and the technology we need, and that we're communicating internally and externally. So a lot of the action items in this area, really going to focus on those and making sure that, you know, we have the capacity, we have the bandwidth to actually implement this plan, or at least going through the exercise to recognize if we don't, and then plan accordingly. Just an overview of the basic timeline. As I mentioned, I'm trying to give this basic presentation to all of the regulatory boards and to as many other committees as we can fit in. I think I've visited with all of the other ones so far, and we'll talk with the zoning board next month. I did give this presentation, which had a lot of good feedback from the COA a couple weeks ago. We will have public information session on September 4th at the library at 4 p.m. And then the committee has been talking about adding a second session once the final draft plan is ready. Have a follow-up session where we can get into a little more detail. The draft plan will be on the town website and available to the public. We'll have a public comment period. And this all kind of culminates with presentation to the select board and adoption by the select board sometime in this coming autumn, so probably most likely sometime in October. And then an important piece will be working with the strategic planning committee on what's the process for monitoring and implementation, and that is that'll be on an upcoming agenda for the committee to work through those items. And that was it. I went through that very quick, so I'm happy to circle back on anything particular, but obviously answer any questions and input. And input's always welcome. And I also just want to thank Michelle, is doing a lot of work with the committee and with the staff. She's got some great experience doing this stuff. So Michelle and Hope Plavin, who's the chair of the committee, are really helping the staff kind of do this, because it's a lot of work to get it across the finish line, but we've had a lot of good input from committees and the staff, so we're hoping we can get it all bundled up in October, and this will be our guiding plan, so.
Okay. I'm going to ask on behalf of all the residents of Eastham, what's it going to cost? Too early to tell.
Well, yeah, I don't think we can put a number on everything, but
Obviously.
like I said, wastewater and housing, in my opinion, and when you look at this plan, those are the two things that are really going to stand out as and we can't do one without the other. So, those are really, in my opinion, the two highest priority items, but we have to do all that with balancing overall that we need the housing, we want development, we want to encourage, the commercial areas, but we have to balance that with the environmental pressures and the fact that, open space and green areas are a huge part of our community, and that's what attracts a lot of people, so we got to balance all these things with stewarding and managing the open spaces. So everything, that's the difficulty. Everything has merit in this plan. It all has to get done.
Right.
It's just how do we put things in order and have the staffing we need and the funding we need.
There's
So
no discussion of sewering the entire town.
no, that's really not part of it.
Feasible.
It's really going to be focused on sewering those areas that are in the watersheds that are where the nitrogen's impacting the watershed areas, and then also the commercial areas, which Route 6 corridor, and it works out nicely because the area that's most viable for the treatment plant is adjacent to the Route 6 corridor, so that's working in our favor. But overall, it's going to be a combination of small sewered area with a lot of non-traditional approaches, and then, better, higher efficiency private septic systems. So it's a combination. All that stuff, just for everyone's knowledge, is laid out in the wastewater management plan, which is on the town website. So it goes through the whole approach to it, the mixed uses of approaches, so.
Fun.
Great.
Did I miss anything, Michelle? that I should
No,
mention?
well, you guys have done such a great job. I mean, it's really good. So the measurable part is hard, right?
Very.
All right, so
Okay,
that's all I got.
very good. Anybody else have anything? Or would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.